Okay. Well, welcome. Good morning, everybody. It's really good to see those that I've seen before, and really lovely to see those I haven't met and those I haven't seen for quite some time. So welcome to the second one of our ACE Travel Management webinars, preparing to return to travel when that might be. It's starting to happen, as you know, and we're trying to keep up to date with all of the changes and precautions and everything that goes with traveling during this global pandemic that we're afflicted with at the moment. Firstly, I would very much like to welcome, well, actually, first of all, I'll just do the quick introductions. I'll ask my team to just put the hand up and say hi. We've got Emily Henning, Operations Manager.
Hello.
Caroline Atrill, Operations Manager.
Hi.
We've got Angela Murphy, Head of Accounts.
Hiya.
And we've got Martin Holland Robinson, who you probably know, Head of Sales and Marketing.
Morning, guys.
So these are the people to contact for everything that you need to know about travel. I'd also very much like to welcome Mike Berry onto the call this morning. Hi, Mike. Mike is the director of Campbell Irvine Limited, an independent firm of insurance brokers based in Kensington. They've been trading in excess of 40 years. Mike's firm has always had very strong ties with the travel industry and arranged a number of travel retail insurance schemes for travel agents and tour operators, as well as corporate travel insurance policies for business. So I'm delighted to welcome Mike. And Mike has very, very kindly agreed to answer some questions on travel insurance. It's a hot topic at the moment. The last 3-4 months, there's been a lot of speculation in the media and in the industry about who is responsible for what refund, where those responsibilities lies, what you may or may not be insured for in terms of travel. So I'm really, really pleased to have from the horse's mouth some expert industry insight from Mike this morning. So Mike, could we just start with a few questions?
Sure, fire away.
Thank you. Could you firstly just explain to us what the fundamental difference is between a corporate travel policy and an individual travel policy?
Yes, the main difference, when you have a corporate policy, insurers will generally have a much more relaxed medical warranty. So in essence, if you have a policy arranged in the name of a company to cover a specific individual or all the employees, the policy does not contain the normal pre-existing medical exclusions that retail policies have. So, for example, a retail policy will exclude claims that relate to any non-disclosed pre-existing medical condition. So you're therefore left at the whims of the individual travelling to telephone a medical helpline, for example, and declare his medical conditions and pay an extra premium to have those conditions covered. Whereas under a corporate policy, it is very simple. They have full cover so long as they are not travelling contrary to the advice of their GP. So hypothetically, you have an employee who 9 months ago had a heart attack. He needs to go out on a business trip. If he has a retail policy, anything relating to his heart will be excluded, and he must contact a medical helpline to declare the condition, and if they are prepared to cover it, pay the appropriate additional premium. If he's covered under your corporate policy, he will automatically be covered for any heart complaints, conditions, treatment that requires whilst he's travelling, so long as he is not travelling contrary to the advice of his GP.
Right.
That's the main difference. There are a few little extra sections that a corporate policy will include, such as employee replacement cover. If you have a member of staff overseas who's suddenly taken ill, can't finish the contract that he was meant to be doing whilst he was out there, insurers will cover the cost of you sending one member of staff out there to replace him and continue finishing that contract. Some sections have a much higher cover. For example, retail policies on personal effects will have between £2,500 and £3,000 worth of cover. A corporate policy will have £10,000 worth of cover. So you have you're catering for the managing directors travelling with their £2,500 watch on their wrist, whereas a normal traveller would have his £250 watch on his wrist, for example.
Okay, yeah, I haven't got a £2,500 watch on my wrist, but there we go. There we go. That's
Funnily enough,
really,
we
yeah,
did have a claim actually for a guy who did lose his £2,500 watch. It's always one that springs to mind, so we did mention him.
oh, well, I'm sure there's plenty of them, just not in my world. That's really interesting, actually. I didn't know that the policies would cover in the event of somebody, a traveller, falling ill or being hospitalised, and the company can then send somebody out without the additional expense. They can claim on insurance for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's,
I didn't know that. That's really interesting. And the reason for the travellers within a business having to being able to be covered without medical declaration is, of course, in a business practice, you can't be seen to have to disclose your medical background. Is that right?
Absolutely, exactly. A lot of employees may not wish their employers to know the fact that they're diabetic, they have a mild form of angina, they're epileptic or whatever. Yeah, a lot of people are very, very private, want to keep it to themselves. So an
Obvious.
employer can innocently send a member of staff off travelling overseas, and they could potentially be uninsured.
Right.
Which, from an
Okay.
employer's perspective, is a little bit worrying.
Yeah. Okay. So it's down to the employee to make sure that there isn't anything that their GP could say you're not fit for travel, and they would have
Absolutely.
to
Oh,
disclose that.
yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
it's between the employee and the GP, nothing
Yeah.
to do with the employers or the insurance. If the GP signs them as fit to travel, a corporate policy will provide full cover whilst they are overseas.
Okay. So a bit of a curveball question. In light of the current situation, the fact that somebody, for instance, might have a case of angina, would a
Yeah.
GP be likely to say
Shipping.
you're in the high risk group and you shouldn't be traveling?
That is one of the reasons why insurers will put it back to the GP.
Right.
We are not qualified to make such decisions.
Ask you to ring him on his mobile?
Therefore, nobody will contradict medical advice. So if the employee visits his GP, GP says, yes, you are fit to travel, then the insurer will provide the cover. No ifs, no buts.
569.
Right. Okay. So it's sort of, a little bit of blurred lines, but generally speaking, corporate travellers will be insured for travel without having to disclose their prior medical conditions.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. In the last few months, many people's flights, package holidays, flight plus packages have been cancelled by the travel supplier. Why can't they claim on travel insurance, Mike?
Okay, there's been an awful lot of this in the press over the last few months. Some travel policies will provide cover if an insured person is able to travel as a result of a change in Foreign Office advice. Generally speaking, most policies will exclude such cover, as generally a travel policy is designed to cover an individual if they themselves are unable to travel as a result of death, injury, or illnesses. Any cancellations by a supplier do tend to fall outside the scope of most travel policies. I won't say all, because there are a few that will provide the cover, but they are in the minority. If somebody is booking a holiday, for example, if they book with a reputable company under the package travel regulations, then the package travel regulations, if it's a package, will fill in the gaps that the travel insurance doesn't provide cover for.
Yeah.
There are other avenues if paid by credit cards, but I'm afraid that's a little bit out of my remit. I don't get involved in those. But generally, a travel insurance policy is only providing cover for the individual.
Yeah. So from our point of view in the travel industry, if a business traveller has booked their flight and is subsequently cancelled by the airline, it is the airline's responsibility to protect those travellers onto a later flight, a different flight, or offer a full refund. They're the
That's my
regulations in
understanding.
terms of the CAA and IATA. And then the package holiday directive protects consumers from supplier failure. So that's not suppliers cancelling their trip, it's suppliers actually going out of business and not being able to fulfill their contract. And that's where the ATOL insurance certificate comes into importance. Is that right?
Definitely, yes. I mean, my understanding is, what was that classic? If it's not at all protected, don't book it at all, or something. That's about the only catchphrase I can remember. But
That's a good
yes,
one.
absolutely right.
That's a really, really good one. Yeah. So around the what's happened in the last few months, one of the problems has been that the suppliers have not been cancelling the holidays or the travel very quickly. They simply have been working on a week-to-week basis, sort of crisis managing the situation and the volume of bookings that have had to be cancelled. You know, in the past, there might have been a geographical problem, say terrorist threats in Tunisia, and all those package
Yep.
holidays to Tunisia are cancelled. A tour operator can manage that, handle that, because it's one region. But when it's global, they've just had too much on their plate to manage at one time. And this is
Chaos.
where the problem's been, because people have been left hanging, knowing that they probably will not be travelling, but had to wait for the supplier to cancel the trip before they can claim any
Absolutely
refund. So that's why people have been in this sort of betwixt situation.
correct.
So if the travel supplier, i.e. the airline, the package holiday provider, they haven't cancelled the trip, but the Foreign Office says you should only travel if absolutely essential, what should the traveller be doing?
Well, now that's an interesting one, because under most retail travel insurance policies, they will all generally contain an exclusion that excludes any cover if an individual is travelling contrary to Foreign Office advice. So they would have no cover whatsoever if they undertook that trip. Corporate policies are slightly different, as they do not have a blanket exclusion if an individual travels contrary to Foreign Office advice. They tend to have a very simple list of excluded countries. And to give you a flavour of the countries we're referring to, there are places like Afghanistan, Yemen, Sudan, etc., where they generally would not wish to offer any cover unless they had full details of a trip provided in advance. So the clients can be left in a little bit of an awkward situation under a retail policy, because, as you say, the supplier's saying, well, the flights are going, the hotel's there, the trip's being run as normal, and the individual will then have a difficulty because they will be unable to travel because their travel policy doesn't cover them for travelling contrary to Foreign Office advice. Corporate policies, as I say, very, very different. They will provide the full policy cover unless you're going to one of the several excluded countries they have.
Right, so the real high threat countries would be excluded, but that would be clear in the policy. But despite Foreign Office advice, corporate travellers can still be covered under their corporate travel policy.
They most certainly can.
Excellent, that's really good clarification. So you mentioned credit cards earlier, and I know that this isn't your remit. I've heard that if a travel company, a travel supplier has offered a voucher, for instance, again, we've had a lot of this, rather than a full refund, they're encouraging people to take vouchers. And some of the companies have said you can always claim on your traveling against your credit card, but I understand that there's some small print in the credit card details that says if you've actually been offered a voucher already by the travel company, then that should be good enough. So again, some of these sort of theories are in fact myths and not necessarily true.
You are absolutely correct.
Concur with that.
All policies, irrespective of its corporate or business, will always provide cover for any irrecoverable payments and charges. So if you have been offered a voucher, technically you have been offered a refund. Insurers would then generally say, well, actually, it's not irrecoverable because you've got the voucher for the amount you paid. So you have recovered your money. There's no cover under the policy.
Okay, understood. Very interesting. So, Mike, is there such a thing as an insurance policy that covers against COVID-19?
Had you asked me this question 3 weeks ago, I would have said no. Since about 3 weeks, retail travel policies are slowly getting back to normal, and there are currently 2 policies on the board. Say 2 policies. There are 2 underwriters. They have numerous different schemes, AXA and Allianz, both of whom will now provide cover for cancellation should somebody contract the virus prior to departure and be unable to travel. And they will also provide medical expenses overseas if somebody contracts the virus whilst travelling. And this all presupposes the fact that they are not travelling contrary to Foreign Office advice. So yes, things are slowly becoming to get back to normal. Corporate policies have continued to cover medical expenses claims for coronavirus overseas, but they do not, and I can't see this position changing for a while, they do not cover any cancellation in respect of claims relating to coronavirus.
Yeah. So again, it's a case of the insurance will cover you, whether individually or as a company, for your medical expenses if you go with the right policy.
Correct.
But what they can't do necessarily is cover for your actual travel booking if it's contrary to, if the Foreign Office then puts out that you mustn't travel. I think
Absolutely.
on the personal insurance, it would cover for cancellation in the event of you either contracting COVID prior to travel.
Yes.
Or
The retail policies now are very, very good, but again, they are only providing cover for the actual individual. So hypothetically, an individual has booked a trip, they're leaving in 6 weeks' time, they're going to a European destination, the Foreign Office have said, yes, all good to travel. You've booked your holiday, you've booked the insurance. A week prior to departure, you either contract the virus or something is flagged up to say that you have been in close contact with somebody who has the virus. And as a result of that, you personally need to self-isolate. You are not going anywhere for 14 days. That is a valid cancellation claim because it relates to the individual. If you are unfortunate enough to live in Leicester, and Leicester was locked down on the instructions of the government, that is not a valid cancellation claim. You would then be left at the whims of your suppliers.
right.
And we know what airlines are like these days. The airline will say, well, the flight's going. If you're unable to make it to the airport to pick up your flight, that isn't our problem. It's very, very harsh.
Okay, so there's still a few grey areas, but there is definitely movement on the cover that's available for personal travel, and definitely for corporate travel. That should
Definitely, 100%.
be relieving business that they will be covered and it is safe, and they've got that full cover there.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Mike. That was really interesting. I'd like to invite any questions. If anybody has any specific questions relating to insurance, perhaps you'd like to ask them now. I know Mike may not be able to stay on for the whole event. So does anybody have any questions that they'd like to pose to Mike?
Please, just a quickie. Mike, just at that last point that you said about, and I know things change, but
Yep.
about the local lockdown, and it doesn't, you wouldn't be able to claim on your insurance if it was personal. What about a corporate? So we're covered under a corporate. We booked some flights to somewhere, and then London and the surrounding areas are locked down. Would that still be the same?
The answer, I'm afraid, is no, because the corporate policy will not provide any cancellation cover for any claims that are in relation to coronavirus, COVID-19, etc.
Okay, so it's still the same. It's the same
That is still
advice.
the same.
Okay,
Yes.
whichever policy it is, right? Thank you.
And I must confess, I've spoken to a number of corporate travel insurers. They in turn assure me that they have spoken to some of their larger corporate clients, and the general feedback from the corporate clients is, if we can't go, we can't go. That is unfortunately a business expense we have to bear.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Be that the attitude of a business, I don't know. If it was my business, I'd be taking a slightly different attitude. But
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where the fares come into mind, making sure that you got some flexibility with your travel and being mindful that anything could happen and not sort of restricting yourself or having too much expense to have to bear.
Yeah,
So
okay.
again, it's that having that choice of fares between a full fare flexibility or maybe a cheaper fare, but with a very, very minimal cancellation fee.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
That's actually a very, very good point, because I must confess, I'm more akin to dealing with the resale public who book these fixed dated tickets, because obviously they're that much cheaper. It's a very good comment, actually, and maybe that's why an awful lot of the corporate companies have realised actually it doesn't make an awful lot of odds. We'll just change the dates on the ticket.
Indeed, and that comes back to why business travel is exempt from the Package Holiday Directive with ATOL, which I'll come on to in a moment. Anyone, any more questions? Well, I shall move on. Thanks so much, Mike. You're very, very welcome to stay, of course, but I know you're incredibly busy at the moment, so I'll leave you to make your exit if you wish.
That's very kind of you. I hope that was useful. I hope it helps. You have all my details. If there's anything that crops up, after I've left, please feel free to email me, give me a ring, whichever's easier. Not a problem.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and we will definitely be in touch. Thank you.
No worries. After the bell out, gratefully. Goodbye, everyone. Hope it all goes well. Let's hope we all get back to some normality very, very soon.
Indeed.
Take care now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
So I hope that was helpful for some of you. It's a bit of a minefield and not something that we generally cover because, we don't generally have to cancel what we've booked unless there's real extenuating circumstances. But for me, that was very helpful. As you may or may not be aware, Ace Travel Management does not sell insurance. We are not experts in that field. We are not regulated by the Financial Services Authority. So we can certainly recommend and get advice and refer, but we do not actually, sell an insurance policy. So I was very pleased to have some expert insights there from Mike. So just going back to the difference between insurance covering for cancellation and ATOL, just to be clear, business travel is exempt from ATOL regulations on the basis that, generally speaking, for business travel, you will still be traveling even if there is an outbreak of, oh gosh, what's the tummy upset called? I can't remember what it's called now.
Norovirus or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, so people will still be traveling. And that's why business travel is exempt from ATOL. Also, the fares generally are more flexible and you will be able to cancel. You'll also be booking quite near to departure compared with personal travel. Very, very rarely does somebody in business travel book a whole year ahead, but that's quite standard for personal travel. So these are the reasons why when we're booking your travel, we don't have to produce an ATOL certificate to cover you against supplier failure. In the event of supplier failure, such as Flybe recently, then there's obviously those procedures that we have to go through to be able to claim your money back on your behalf. But ATOL covers supplier failure. So if you're booking your own flights personally, you're booking with a company, and then you book with a hotel with another company or direct, and you haven't got an ATOL certificate, you will not be covered if one of those suppliers fails. You won't be covered. So make sure you have an ATOL certificate when you do your booking. Okay, going to move on. Feel worn out now, all that technical bit on insurance. So back to ACE Travel Management. Last time we all met here, we discussed our ACE Travel Toolkit and some of the devices and systems that we have in place to help you with your travel process, particularly at the moment when there's all these other risks and circumstances to have to take into account. Our partnership with Focus and BTA, Business Travel Association, and Advantage, we get so much resources from them in terms of technical tools, as well as the information, up-to-date information, up-to-the-minute information on what suppliers are doing, the airline policies and so forth. So we've got these resources at our fingertips. A really good one that's on our website right now, we introduced last time, is our COVID map. Martine, do you just want to explain a little bit about that quickly?
Yeah, of course. It's an interactive map that's available on our website. So we've included the link there. You'll see it as a widget come up when you go on. It can be accessed from your mobiles as well. So it allows you to click on the destination you're looking to go to. As you can see from these sort of pinpoints there, you would click on one of those and it would then bring you up on the left-hand side, quarantine measures for that country, even that particular area, the travel restrictions, which airlines are flying into that destination, the maximum amount of people you're allowed to have in an event at any one time, because obviously this information is changing all the time. It's updated daily by analysts. So we are really advising everyone to use this as a tool when you're planning your travel. We use it behind the scenes as well when we're, looking at all of your quotations. But we would definitely recommend, filtering this into your travel booking process, and also keep checking it even once your ticket's been booked, because obviously things can change at any time. So we just want to share with you all this new bits of kit we've got to try and help you with travellers travelling through the pandemic.
Okay, that's great. So that's available on the website. You can add it to your favourites and click on it to your heart's content. We'll also be checking for you if you do have any travel inquiries. Really useful tool. Just going back to insurance, but this is something we've always done, but just in case you've forgotten, we do produce a report for your insurance return. So when your insurance come to you and say you're due for renewal and they want to know where you've been and for how long and how many people, we can produce this. If you put the travel through us, we can produce this at a touch of a button. And that tells the insurance company what global regions you've been to, and then they risk assess, depending on that country or that region, how much your insurance is going to be. So it's just a reminder that that's available to you. So just looking at where we are now, obviously a month ago we were talking about airlines just starting to resume travel. Well, they have now, and we've seen some of the quarantine restrictions lifting from certain countries, which will come into play from the 10th of July. We are seeing more inquiries every day. There's more and more coming in. So certainly people are wanting to get back flying, getting back to their normal business routine. and get moving again. As the Chancellor has said, oh, I'm just going to try and move that bar. Oh, there we go. Business travel is critical in the economic recovery. So I think everyone's keen, but with safety and reassurance to get your people moving again. Oh, my screen's frozen, bear with. IATA, as you know, the International Aviation Transport Association, who've been incredibly busy lately, as you can imagine. Again, this hasn't just hit one country, it's hit the whole world. So IATA have got something like just under 400 airlines to try to collaborate with and get them all singing from the same song sheet in terms of their putting safety first, safety and security, the airlines being able to respond flexibly as this crisis moves from a crisis into, well, should we say normality, but with the risk of spikes in different regions. Also being mindful of environmental targets, so they've put that in there with their 5-step plan in terms of the airlines making sure that they're doing everything possible to fly as environmentally friendly as possible. So they're encouraging governments to adopt these global standards so that we haven't got, you know, one airline in one region doing one thing and another one doing another, and, you know, there's all this sort of confusion and lack of harmony around the globe. So that's really important for us and, of course, for the consumer confidence to move forward. We've got a video on there about the way that IATA are promoting safe travel from the ground at the airport right through to the journey in the aircraft. But I'm not going to play it because I'm just a bit frightened that if I start using the internet, my Zoom meeting will go a bit pear-shaped. So you can look at that at your leisure. We'll be happy to share this. Martine, we had saw an interview on the BBC the other day. What does this mean to you, Martine?
Yeah, so I mean, we're working away last Thursday with the news on, and I'm sure many of you do, and it's really refreshing when you hear some positivity with a safety element, as Sarah said, with regards to returning to travel. So some of you may have also heard a professor from Manchester University quoting, you know, he would travel tomorrow. So obviously we prick up our ears to that. And, you know, he's quoted that the airports and planes will be super clean, very disciplined environment on a plane, so it's safer than the public transport. You know, the HEPA filters that we spoke about last time, where the air is reconditioned every 2 to 3 minutes. And obviously, yeah, there are some risks, but they're mitigated with masks. So, you know, we're really listening for all of this advice from experts, and, you know, when we hear it, we'll try and share it with you, and it may help you, you know, when you're talking to your travellers as well about any anxiety they've got about returning to travel as well.
For me, the government always says, let's listen to the science. And Professor Ashley Woodcock is actually, it doesn't say on the slide here, he's the head of Department for Infectious Diseases. I believe that is his correct title. So he's very, very much at the forefront of controlling, managing diseases and so forth. So for him to say, I travel tomorrow, for me, that gives me a great deal of assurance, and I'd certainly say, well, I'll book you tomorrow. So travel planning, we spoke last time about some of the things that you might need to take into consideration now. We've actually done an article through PA Life, which some of you may be members of, which is quite a sort of lengthy article about the journey, not just the journey in the aircraft, but the entire journey from planning stage through to return. So what are your key areas, Martine, for the takeouts from this?
Yeah, so we know that your travel planning is going to be even more intense now. You know, you've got a lot of things to consider and negotiate through all the measures and quarantine measures that are out there. So we did speak about this in part one, so we won't sort of repeat that. My key takeaways are to think about the whole experience for your travellers. So that includes your pre-travel planning, so risk assessing, what suppliers are you using? Are you happy with their hygiene protocols in the hotel, for example? Think about the whole end-to-end trip for your travellers. So it's not just the traditional hotel and flight, which is obviously very critical, but how are they getting to the airport? Are they driving themselves? Have you pre-booked the car park? Do you need to do a chauffeur transfer? If meals on the flight are going to be limited, is the lounge pass open? Can you book them a lounge pass? So it's really thinking about everything that they need and how much you can get done in advance. I think a really good point actually is we talk about business etiquette, and obviously there's different greetings in different countries and cultures, but now we've got to contemplate what's acceptable and what do they do in different countries in terms of how they greet each other. So we know that the handshake, you know, is not around at the moment. So, you know, is it the Wu handshake, which is with the feet, you know, which traditionally started in China? Is it the elbow pump they're doing in the States? Is it the hand over the heart, which is quite common in Turkey? So I just thought it just a good point to mention, to have a look into this before your travellers depart. Maybe check with your colleagues overseas that you're working with, what acceptable, what are they doing, so your travellers don't feel in that embarrassing situation or do anything that might offend either. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, really good points actually. Someone I know came back from Italy a couple of days ago, and she was saying obviously Italians do the 3 kisses, 1 on each cheek and 1 for luck, and everyone's sort of walking up to each other and not quite knowing what to do anymore, and awkward moments. So yeah, your sociable greetings, that's a really good point depending on where you are in the world. Thank you. We are adopting a new profile system, which is going to be an automated system straight into our reservations GDS system. So it's sort of untouched by us. It goes straight into the system. Reason why we're doing this at the moment is because it's got a few extra steps in it, which will enable us to help you with your travel policy. You might want to put an authorization process in place as an extra safeguard. Maybe your HR department or someone or other wants to know what's going on and who's traveling where. So it's a good time for us to incorporate that into our toolkit. You also might have changes in your staff levels in your organizations. We don't want to be keeping information that we don't need and isn't relevant on your travelers. So we will be going through this process over the next few weeks to make sure that we've got your travel profiles up to date and enable this new system with these sort of extra steps in place that may help with your travel policy and compliance. We talked about the airport experience. It's common sense really, but it's all about thinking about being at the airport and making sure that, you know, you need to touch as few things as possible. There's a video there again on Southend Airport showing how the process works. There's hand gel kits everywhere, reminders everywhere, social distancing, encouraging people to travel, being reassured that it is very, very safe. Martine, what's the contact details and registration forms?
Well, that's, I mean, Caroline and Emily might come in on this a bit more, but it's the registration forms that the passengers have to complete. Say people coming into the UK, where our requirement is they let people know their the authorities know their journey details. It was when we particularly had the quarantine restrictions that have only just slightly changed.
Yeah.
But so you know, the authorities can check they are quarantined for 14 days. So again, you've got to check the destination you're going to, whether they require any prerequisites on registration forms, etc., that you can find on the on our, you know, interactive map. And to make sure you've got your contact details up to date in your profile, so you do get those flight status updates from your airline, and that we know you're in case of emergency numbers as well. But yeah, so that's what I was sort of referring to.
Yeah, being prepared, really, having those forms to hand. I believe we've got them available on our website. If not, Caroline and Emily can certainly get them to you. Might not need them if the, you know, where the quarantine restrictions are being lifted, but I guess it's just being prepared, knowing where to go to get the information and to get the right things that you might need.
I guess there's also no harm in just having a form with you. You know, if you're traveling, just make sure you've got a form with you just in case, because like we said before, things are changing all the time. So just, again, just being prepared for it. Yeah,
having those details.
It'll also be important for us to have the passengers' contact details in case there are any sort of last minute cancellations or changes to flights.
Yeah, still living in a slightly volatile time.
Yeah, so we can contact them, you know, straight away to let them know of any changes.
Okay, thank you. So we had a quick research into the hygiene kits, and would suggest that, you know, you enable your travellers to make sure that they've got these available in case they do need to travel at sort of relatively short notice. I've just put this in here really because I found this company, the Green Office, which provides these ecologically friendly wash bag kits. All the contents are as green as it can possibly be, and I think it's important not to forget that, you know, we are trying to be more climate friendly, so that you might want to have a look at that and get prepared. Emily, can you explain these slides?
Yeah, sure. So as we know, as of Friday, we will have a list of destinations from which arrivals back into England will not have to go through the quarantine. Obviously, it's a step in the right direction, but however, there has been some confusion over the lists. So the Advantage Travel Partnership have created a one-page document. So here, countries in green are ones in which no COVID checks are in place, and those in amber do have some checks on arrival or departure. Again, changes are, however, likely to happen, and the list does not contain, and this list does not contain all the countries covered in the government's list, but ones that offer an easier passage of travel for people travelling from and to the UK. So this document is available on our website and obviously through our social media channels as well.
But this is constantly being updated, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So we make sure that that's continually being updated on the website. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's about having the information available, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So Emily and Caroline attended a webinar from British Airways recently. Do you just want to let us know what you can expect from British Airways now?
So I've just highlighted some of their policies and procedures that they've put into place to obviously ensure the safety of their staff and passengers. Some of these are, if a traveller does show symptoms within 7 days of travel, certainly not to travel and to notify their travel agent and airline. Limit the use of hand luggage. Listen to announcements when they're at the airport, as some of the processes may be different from what we're used to. Aircraft is thoroughly cleaned. They will be offering pre-prepared meal boxes, but please consider taking your own food on the flight, as they can't offer sort of special meal requests, vegetarian, religious reasons, that can't be provided. Also, just to reduce cabin movement once on board the aircraft.
So get your paper or your Kindle and stuff out of your bag ready, because they don't want people sort of moving around for no good reason. But sounds encouraging.
Yeah, certainly does.
Okay. There are a whole load of videos which we'd love to share with you, but you may get bored very quickly. All of the airlines are pushing out these videos on how safe and clean and security conscious their flights are going to be, what they've done with their cabins to minimize movement and to enhance social distancing. We are certainly able to share this with you. And again, for traveller confidence and reassurance, if you are interested in going to a particular place and particular airline, let us know. We can sort of send a video so that you know what to expect. I think that also helps, knowing what to expect on a flight. And this is all available at our fingertips. So please let us know if we can help. So I think that's most of the information available at the moment. It's a dynamic situation, as you know. We will keep you as updated as we can. We've got a LinkedIn closed group, which I know some of you have joined. Lovely, thank you. And if you haven't, we'll let you know how to. But we'll keep as much information and advice on there as we possibly can. We're really drilling down on fares at the moment, seeing what you may or may not be able to expect, whether there's going to be a massive increase in fares or, you know, changes to the types of fares that are being made available. We know already some of the British Airways fares have become more flexible and changeable, even the very sort of cheaper restrictive ones. So again, it's encouraging booking with confidence. So I'd encourage you to join our group. Amongst all of this, I was really kind of in need of a spa day, which I can't have. You know, it's been pretty stressful for everybody, I think, the last few months. So friend and I at Travel Mole said, well, let's create one, and we did. So we've got a lovely wellness day on the 17th of July, which is sort of for mind, body and soul. And a company called Talent Courtyard have put together a program of lovely events, workshops, creative workshops, poetry, music, as well as yoga and breathing techniques and de-stressing and things like that. It's all in aid of mind. Please join us. Love to see you there. I will be there. I'm not working that day. Just a reminder about the holidays, going back to the ATOL certificate. If you book a personal trip through us, whether it's just a flight plus, what have you, have a look on our website. If you're considering booking a holiday in the next few months, there's plenty of offers there. Do have a look, including your UK breaks as well. We can do that. And it's protected by ATOL for supplier failure. So I think that's it. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and invite any questions now. I hope that was useful. I can go back to anything that